Welcome back to Eat, Sleep, Boxing Repeats YouTube channel. We are here for another boxing betting tip show. Delighted as always to be joined by Paul Kelly. Another stacked weekend of boxing this week. We've got fights in the UK, fights abroad, fights on Friday, fights on Saturday. Lots going on. Paul, thanks for joining me. First question, did you make any money from the Canelo-Bivol fight?
Well, surprisingly, I'm one of these people that loves looking at betting odds but never actually places them. So regardless of whether I tip a winner or not, I'm never backing it myself. But no, in terms of what I said last week, I thought, we did actually allude to Bivol winning. And you did mention the 7-1, which I'm sure you will want to come on to in a second. But I said about a knockout for Bivol because I couldn't see him winning on the cards. Which nearly did come true.
Exactly. I feel like if there were odds available for Bivol being like robbed on the cards, I think that would have been a good betting tip last week, but don't think that was available. But I just think said it last week, I'll say it this week, big slip up by the bookies offering 7-1 for Canelo to win on points, because I wasn't, my prediction was Canelo 1 points, but I just thought at 7-1 it was worth something, and for some strange reason didn't kind of back it, just because I just thought there's a good chance Bivol will win the fight, but whether he gets the decision is a completely different question. I suppose if you had put money on 7-1 when those scorecards were read out of 115, 113, I don't know about you, but I would have probably been thinking, it's going Canelo's way. Those are kind of too close to call. But it is what it is. We will see what the odds are like for the rematch, assuming that happens next. See if the bookies slip up again. I'm not so sure this time. Go straight into it. I know we've got a treble each. I will let you go first. What is your first betting tip for this weekend, Paul?
So I'm gonna go to Friday night, and the main event between Linus Udofia and Denzel Bentley for the British middleweight title. And I can see you're smiling there, so I wonder if we have something similar here. But I think it's a really close fight. I think it's a really good fight. I think we'll get a good scrap. British title fights more often than not always deliver, and I think we'll get that again. And although there's a decent knockout ratio for Denzel Bentley, and Udofia has a few of them is of his own, I can think this is destined to go the distance personally. So I think that, and I would edge it towards Bentley just on experience. And I know he lost that, his biggest fight against Felix Cash quite emphatically. But I just think, of the names he's faced, I'd have to favour Denzel Bentley. So I'm going to go with Denzel Bentley on points at 3-1.
3-1, good tip. I've got a tip for that fight as well, purely for the reason that the odds are just so close. And as we said on our call with Eliot earlier this week, it's just none of us really gave a prediction then, and not many people are. So it's such a 50-50 fight. However, I kind of said to myself this week, if you had to bet a $5 or a 10 or however much on this fight, where would you go if you had to? And I'm going for Linus Udofia to win by KO at 2-1. I think that if you look at his last couple of performances, his last opponent and John Harding Jr., both by stoppage, dominated both fights, stopped one opponent late, stopped one opponent early. But I'm just giving him the edge. I wouldn't kind of advise anyone to kind of lump on that. But I just think 2-1 to win by KO. I back that. I think Udofia's I do think he's a decent puncher. And Bentley has been stopped before, although that was against Felix Cash. But I think Udofia 2-1 is my first tip of the weekend. So interesting that we both picked the same fight. We've gone for completely different answers there. We'll go back to you, Paul. What's your second tip this weekend?
So I'll go with one on the undercard of the undisputed fight between Charlo and Castano. I'll go for the Jaron Ennis fight. He's fighting someone who on paper he's undefeated. It looks like it could be a decent test, but in reality, will it be? It's Clayton's his name, isn't it? I just think Jaron Ennis, he's the real deal. He's got all but 2 of his wins have come by stoppage, and I think that'll be the same again this time. Clayton hasn't been stopped before, so you kind of don't really know about the chin that he has. I think that'll be something. I think I could see a stoppage in the middle rounds. For Jaron Ennis, I don't think it'll come in the first 3, or maybe 4 onwards. But odds I'm getting of 13-8 for Jaron Ennis to win in rounds 5 to 8. I kind of like those odds.
Nice. Okay, interesting. Again, unlike the last tip, I'm going for the same fight, but something kind of similar to what you've done. I'm going Jaron Ennis rounds 1 to 6. Basing that kind of, if you look at his last few, quite like his last 10 or so fights, they've all pretty much come in rounds 1 to 6. And I've had a little look at Clayton, and I do think he's been picked as an opponent for Ennis as a kind of get back into the swing of things sort of fight. Ennis hasn't had a fight for a little while. I imagine Ennis will have a big fight in his next fight, assuming he wins on Saturday. So I've gone, it's 10 to 11, Jaron Ennis rounds 1 to 6, and nearly evens. Pretty confident on that one. Pretty tempted to put that on as a single, if I'm honest. But I'm not going to be too confident. Final one, Paul. What is your final tip this weekend?
Well, I'll quickly mention 2, but I'm actually going to save one. I'll save my big one. I'll save my moneymaker of the weekend till last. So I'll mention the big heavyweight fight that we'll have this weekend between Tony Yoka and Martin Bokolie.
It just makes me laugh because we don't speak before this call, but we just picked the exact same 3 fights. It's hilarious. But so this looks like it's so scripted, but it's generally not.
Well, we talked about that fight in a preview earlier in the week and stuff, and it's one of them where it is difficult to call because you sometimes do think we haven't seen the best of both men. I'd argue that Tony Yoka's looked more impressive than Martin Bokolie in the short career that he has had as a professional. When I say short career, he did turn pro. He's been pro for 5 years. He only has 11 fights. I do think you have to favour Tony Yoka. I think that with it being in France, I think with him having the Olympic pedigree and everything like that, I think you got to favour Tony Yoka, and I could see it being, a late stoppage in favour of Yoka. No, I haven't actually found odds. The one I wanted to say was Yoka a KO, TKO in the second half of the fight, so around 6 to 10, but I couldn't actually find odds on that. So if there are ones that come out later in the week, I'm sure they'll be decent enough. But for him just to win by knockout, it's 6 to 5, which I think is a decent enough price considering we don't really know how good Bokolie is. When he has been beaten, he has been stopped. I think that Yoka's obviously very powerful. So I think that, and it sounds daft, but he stopped Dave Allen in the last round, didn't he? Not very many people do that.
No, it's not easy to do. No, fair enough.
Yeah, so that's mine.
It's so I'm going same as you, basically. Tony Yoka KO, seen similar odds. I've seen odds of 11 to 10. I'm finding this one tricky to call, and it's the sort of one where I think there'll be some people putting money on Bokolie. Bokolie's a good heavyweight, and a lot of people say he's on the same level as Yoka. Some people might rank him higher than Yoka, possibly. So I think you might have a fair amount of people putting money on a Bokolie stoppage in this fight. However, I've had a look at both fighters, had a think, and that's my prediction is Tony Yoka to win. Whether it's on points or KO, it's a tough one, but it's a heavyweight fight. Yoka has a high KO percentage. Bokolie's been stopped before, so I'm going KO. So Tony Yoka, 11 to 10 KO against Martin Bokolie this Saturday. Was there one more you wanted to share, Paul?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going big on this one. I mentioned it on the preview, and it does come in that undisputed super welterweight fight between Yoka and Charlo and Brian Castano. And I think the first fight was a really, really good fight. There was times in the fight where Castano was on top. There was times in the fight where Charlo was on top. People would have argued maybe that Castano deserved the decision, but a draw was probably fair, and I'm just glad we're getting it again. And I think that it was clear to see that Charlo possibly underestimated Castano the first time. Thought he could maybe blow him out of there. In the middle rounds, he was loading up on his shots quite a lot, which I know is part of his style, but he was doing it an awful lot against someone of the pedigree of Brian Castano. So I think this time, if Charlo sticks to a more resolute game plan and, doesn't go gung-ho, I think that he'll be able to force the stoppage rather than, going for it from the get-go, gassing out or whatever. I think, he'll systematically break Castano down. So I think that in the second half of the fight, Charlo will get to Castano and will stop him, and you can get that at 4-1 for Charlo to win by KO or TKO in round 7 to 12, which if I was a betting man, I would be all over personally.
I think with Charlo, sometimes I think if you go into a fight and it's a draw or you lose on points and you think you've won and there is a rematch, fighters go into that not wanting to leave it to the judges. So you got to wonder if Charlo will be doing that. An interesting one. That one, tough one to call. Going to probably take a look at the weigh-in, see how I'm feeling on fight night. Be interested to see what people, not necessarily betting tips, but people's predictions are for that fight as well. See if people who's back in Castano, who's back in Charlo. Nice one, mate. We'll round things off. I'll go first. It's my treble. Lionel Sadofy to win by KO. Tony Yoka to win by KO. Jaron Ennis to win in rounds 1 to 6. It's just over 11-1. So a tenner would return you just over £120. Not bad at all, if you don't mind me saying. We will see how many of those come true, as we always do. What are the results of your treble, Paul?
Yeah, I think yours is a nice treble. Mine, because I've thrown the Charlo late stoppage in, has enhanced the odds quite a bit. So Charlo knockout round 7 to 12, Bentley on points, and Tony Yoka by KO TKO. If you put those together, it comes in at 43-1.
Lovely.
So I think that, even if you were saying about a tenner for yours would return, 110, 120 £120. I think because mine is a bit bigger odds, even if you put a fiver on it, you're still gonna make a decent amount of money. You'd still make £200+ from putting a fiver on that. So I think that, depending on how daring you are with your bets, it's definitely worth a fiver, maybe a tenner.
Yeah, depends what your attitudes are. We're not in a position to advise, but no, don't. As always, like the sound of that. Cool, nice one, Paul. Plenty to cover this week, plenty to cover next week. Looking forward to seeing what you have to say about Joshua Buatsi and Craig Richards. Looking forward to seeing the odds for that one. As always, thank you for your time, mate, and we will see you. Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Cheers, Eliot. All the best.